morning. Welcome to another episode of Papa's Workshops. These are for Adam, Brady, Luke, and Brennan. But before we get started, we got to check in with my assistant. There she is. You ready to work today? My assistant, the best assistant ever. Yes. All right, let's get to work. All right, this session we're going to work on these removable dividers and start on the doors. There's 3 doors. So first step is trying to get these where they slip in and out easily with one hand. And you know, perfection is a tough thing to achieve. So these are not, you know, they're just, sometimes there's a slight difference between this distance or the V-cut isn't perfect. So it'll be fine on one side and then maybe a little tighter on the other, but still. So I have to work on both the height of this and sometimes I got to trim these V grooves a little bit for the side that's a little tight. And I do have a little bit of cupping on these horizontal pieces. Not much you can really see until you put a straight edge on it, and you see it's just a little fraction of an inch. So that means I get it's tight either in the middle or tight on the 2 front or back. So, and my last little purchase from Lee Valley on a whim, I got this little miniature dado plane, and this actually turned out to be the perfect tool to be able to get into those V-cuts and just take a little pass on them. It works really well, and it's small enough that I can get into the ones close to the welds where the big one I couldn't do that. So that actually turned out to be a really nice little tool. So I may get some other of those little miniatures for some fine work like this. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do right now is get these they're all reasonably cut. Let's see, that one's still too tight. And what I'm doing is, you see that on there, there's a flat spot. So it's only going to be rubbing on the 245s and not have to be clear to the bottom of the hole. Hopefully that makes it a little easier to put them in there. So once we get all of these to the right length where they flip in and out, then we'll start putting the decorative fronts on them. All right, I got all the removable dividers are easy to move, and we got the finger hole put in them. And if you can see I got them drawn out. What they have to be. I've cut out a couple already of the small ones, so we just have to smooth those out, and those will all have to be rounded over, and you can't really do that without anything for a pilot bearing to go on. You can't really do that with a bead bit or a round over. You could probably take the 2 outside pairs and tape them together, use one as a pilot, but I think we'll just that or make a template for them all, which would be what, 7? There's 10 dividers, but with the duplicates on the sides, you'd have 7 templates. That's more work than it's worth. So we'll just get them smooth here, and then we'll just round them over by hand with a file. It won't take too long. So we just got to cut the rest of these all out and then sit down and start sanding. All right, we got all of the movable dividers are finished and sanded. This is the close-up of them, and you can see each that they all look identical, but of course, because they're different sizes, they are not. so there's ratios on all of that. And you see that the small ones don't have room for this circle here, so those don't have it. And there are some differences in you've got this recess here, so you know these ones are in the middle, but on the top there's a difference between the the top and the shelf, and the same we've got this 1/8 of an inch proud and where these stop, so there are differences, but the profile and that hides all that, so it looks pretty good. So now I need to mill up the stock for the doors. Here is a picture of the top, and so we got the 3 doors. But what goes on is the 2 doors are hinged together, these two, and then this one opens by itself. So there's no, so this part right in here is actually part of this door, and this part is part of this door. So even though the doors appear to be the same size, they're not really. These 2 outside ones are a little bit bigger because they've got this inch space in between that's got to be on there. And just like the below, we've got, these are raised panels, and this is a lowered panel. So this center door is carved all from one, that's just one board. And so we've got to put that recess in, carve the shell on the top. The ones on the outside are actually a frame, and this raised section is applied. It's kind of like a frame and panel, except that the panel is not on the inside. It's just it just sits there on top, and there's some molding on the back side of it. So we're going to mill up the stock and make this frame for both of these 2 outside doors first. All right, we got the stock milled up, and we got the tendons and mortises done using the panel router. Some unique things, some liberties I'm taking with this door is, you can see the stile is only about 1 inch wide. It's pretty narrow. Of course, this one has got this and this, so it's twice that size. And I don't know if you can see it on this one. Yeah, you can see the crack there. On the inside, it's been repaired. That whole stile just broke. It's just not big enough for all the weight, because this door has the weight of this door as well. So I'm going to make those stiles a little bit bigger, wider. So this is going to be about just under 2 inches wide on mine, and then I make this one correspondingly bigger so that the inside is somewhat balanced. So the only difference we'll be able to see from the original is that these lines here will be in a little bit farther. But I think for strength-wise, that's a lot better. They also used, at least on this bottom door, it's the only one I could see, they used through tendons all the way through. But since I made it bigger, I don't think I need to do that. I may peg, all the stress is going to be on this top, but you can see, you can't really see, it's behind there, but this guy here is about that wide. Well, you can see it on the back side. So it has, I'm guessing, 2 tendons. That's what I put on there, but I couldn't see. I've only got one picture. It's with the doors open and it's turned a little bit, that I can see the side of that door, and I couldn't see any through tendons at the top here. But that's all been repaired. So, but at the bottom I saw the through tendon there. So, and on this side, I don't know that they would have gone all the way through, because this basically is a recess on the front of the door. So anyway, long story short, I made just a standard mortise and tenon, and I did shift. We got this is a little narrower than this one. See, on this side, they're both the same, about 1 3/4 inches, but I made this one because the hinge has to go, let me get this right here. So this would be the mortise here and there, and the red represents the screws from the hinges. So I had to make that one a little narrower, so there's plenty of beef in there for the screws on the hinges. And that's the way they had them mounted, is they're pretty high. And you know, I think with the weight, there probably should have been a third one, but I'm not going to do that because that's not the way the original was. I take liberties on the way it's made, but in the end, I'm trying to get it to look like the original. I'm not hung up on it being exactly made the way they made it. And the other odd thing here is, this is that bottom that we were looking at before, but see how the hinge projects out? That's about 3/4 inch from the case. And that's so that when it opens, this raised panel will not, miss this raised molding, right? So it has to be there. But because of that, the doors, I don't know if you can see on this picture, anyway, that the opening is right in line with the edge of that door. And then there's, if you look at it expanded out, you can see gaps. So the combined width of all three doors has to be exactly the same as the opening. And I think that's because of this hinge, because anything beyond this way, beyond the center point, is going to have to go down a little bit before it starts swinging up. So if that lip extended 3/16 beyond the edge of the cabinet, like it does on the top and the bottom, it would jam and not open the door. So the doors have to be exactly that opening. So that's sort of an odd thing. So we're going to glue these up. I got one just dry fit. We're going to glue these up, and then well, they're a little oversized. I made the length about 1/8 inch longer than normal, or what the finished size is going to be, and about a 1/16 on these rails, so I can trim it and make it square if anything goes a little out of whack. And then we'll have to put this little the trim around the outside, recess that edge, and then we can start working on the blocking and the shell. Long-winded today. All right, while we're letting the doors dry, I started the template for the shells, and this is going to be the pattern for the blocking, and that's how they mate on the original. That's not, you don't have to go back and look at the lid, but that's not the way the lid was. It's the way I did the lid, but that's not the way the original was. But on the door, it is like this. And the grain is going this way on the shell, and it's going this way on the blocking. So I got that template. So now I'm going to drill these holes around the perimeter. And so I just made a quick little, that's my assistant helping me. I just got a nail in there, and I'm going to pivot. I'm going to pivot right around the holes, so they'll all be the same. Since this is going to be the template for all three shells, I want it to be as accurate as possible. So that's the first step. All right, both doors are glued up and cut to size. I used a story stick here to make the lines where the blocking has to go. And then we've got to put this recess in here, which is going to be like the false style, and at the top. And you see, I got a hole there. The blocking and the shell both, I'm gonna put a dowel, have some sort of mechanical. For the shell, it's gonna be for alignment. So I got the patterns for the shell and that done. Here. So the shell will go on there, right there, and then the blocking will go up inside of that. So with these holes, that's where in the blank for the shell, I'll put those in there, and then we'll use that to put the holes in the frame, and so that it'll fit in place. And you know, when it's glued up, it's not gonna slide around on me. And then the same with the blocking will fit those holes. And there's at least then some mechanical strength to that joint instead of just the glue. I don't know, don't have a clue what they did without x-raying it. So this template we're going to use it as a router template on that joint. So that the top of the blocking, we use this, and the bottom of the shell, we use that. And the rest of it is just for marking, and then a drill guide for these there. So that's what that's for. So the next step is to cut that rabbet. Basically, it's 1/4 inch deep and about 1 inch wide, and that'll serve as the false style. Then I'm going to have to get there's basically a 3/16 round over that's recessed to 1/16 that's going to be around this edge, but on this edge we have to make it look the same, right? So I need to get a bit that doesn't have a bearing. So it's a 3/16 radius, but doesn't have a bearing on there. I've got an 1/8 inch and I've got a 1/4 inch, but I don't have a 3/16. So I will have to get that before I do that. Well, right now we're going to go ahead and do the rabbet, and we'll go from there. All right, here we are at the router table. I've got a bit now. See that profile there? So that's going to put my 3/16. Can't really see it. Yeah, they're through. There you go. 3/16 radius curve. And with the flat, with no bearing on the top, I mean, it's a round over bit, but with no bearing on the top, it allows me to do that inside one. So on the table saw, I use a dado blade, remove most of the waste, but not all of it. So we got a little bit more to go in here and just a hair on this. So what we'll do is we'll take multiple passes and work up to that point. But first we need to put the bead, or the round over on this end grain, both ends of the door and this outside, the other outside edge. And then we'll sneak up on those. And of course my assistant is always right here helping. All right, see, we got the profiles done on both of those. So now we have to, I'm trying to do all this stuff before we put on the blocking, and it's a little easier to handle. And of course these ones on the top, I needed a flat top. So the doors are set for a 3/16 overlay at the top and the bottom. So we'll have to put a rabbet. This represents the surface, the face of the cabinet. And so that'll have to go back 3/16. So we need to put a 3/16 rabbet all the way across. and they show somewhat of one on this edge, but it's kind of awkward the way they've got that hinge. The hinge is kind of mounted the thickness of the bead to 3/16. And it appears to be surface mounted. It's not mortised in. So I have to wait till I get the hinges. I think I'll put a shallow one on that side and wait till I get the hinges. And I haven't been able to find them. I think I'm going to have to spend the bucks and have them special made. So anyway, let's put on those rabbits. All right, we got it. Got the rabbits done. I got the 2 doors test fitted in the cabinet. So that's what it looks like. Of course, that's the total gap. There'll be half of that at top and bottom once the hinges are mounted. Right now, the gravity's keeping it all the way down, but that's the way we're looking. So pretty good. So I think we can go ahead and start on the shells and the blocking. Again, I'll probably have to do the blocking first, or at least get the thickness of it, and do this edge so I can mark on the shell what the depth is. The shell's a little taller than the blocking, so that'll be next. All right, before we get any farther on the shells, I need to get the blocking rounded over and positioned and cut to size. So it's cut to width, and I use this template on the top, so and then fine tune the joint. So now we're going to position this on the door. It's kind of hard to see. See, we're going to have to cut some off, but it's all dependent on where the shell is. So we're going to put the shell, we're going to clamp the shell where it's supposed to be, and then we're going to put so I've got some lines here. I'm going to put clamp a block on either side so that it's centered down here, and then we got marks to center it up there. And we're going to use a dowel marker and that top hole, and then once that's in, we'll do this bottom hole. So we'll get the blocking straight. Because if we try to do the shell first, if it's off, just since there's no straight edges on there, all I've got is my lines on the blank. If that's just turned a little bit, then this can be over this way. I'm exaggerating it, but it wouldn't take much to be off that distance. So we're going to put this on first, and then we can position and put the dowel holes in for the shells. So let's get it done. All right. So I got bumpers here, basically, and I got it all centered up and measured the gap on either side. So now we can put in a dowel marker. So that just has a little center point in it, and then we'll set this down on top of it. If I without wiggling it, there we go. So just take a little. So now we got our mark. So we just drill a hole for that side, and then we'll do the bottom. All right, I got the 2 pieces cut to length, and I went and on the table saw cut a 45, just cut the corner of the curve. I drew the curve first and then figured out where I needed to make that cut to get rid of most of the waste. And that line represents where the curve should end. So we've got a little bit to take off here because the curve should end on the edge. but it's not at 90. This is not a, so this is the kind of curve. So that angle is not, it's not coming in at 90. So it's not just a half a circle. So I've got this point here marked on the boards, and then of course we know where the edge is. So it's a matter of taking some hand planes and working it down to the lines and making a nice curve. So we'll do that. All right, here I am working on this rounding. This going with the grain's pretty easy. I've got the hollow that's just at the right arc, and so that works pretty well, but it gives me too much tear out on the end grain, so I did that pretty much just with the block plane, low angle block plane. And so I got to work it a little bit more until we want that line right there. So I need to take some more off of this to get that line straight. You want that to be at the 45 at the bottom of this. So we're getting there. All right, we got them done. So that's the way it's going to look. I'm going to clean these both up, the frame and the door, and go ahead and glue those in place. And then we'll be ready to work on the shells. All right, we got the blocking glued to the door. So that's when it looks ready for the shell to be up above that. But I'm going to switch gears before I work on the shells. I'm going to basically finish the door. On the back side, there is molding that goes in here. And I went ahead and made that. I had a bit with this profile. And so that's going to go in there this way. Like that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those. Since it has to be down on its face, I didn't want any risk of the shells being dented when I did this. So I'm going to do this, and then we'll work on the shells. All right, I got one of them the molding all cut and installed and glued. So when that dries enough to take the clamps off, we'll work on the other one. All right, there's the molding all installed. And so this door is done, except for the shell. So that'll be it for this episode, and then we'll work on the shells next time and the center door.